So, today I'll be talking about the changes of college football, which I think are really bad. Mm, So, mm, uh, it was announced before the start of the 2021 season that mm, Texas and Oklahoma were leaving the Big 12 for the SEC, but it was supposed to not happen until 2025, but it's happening a year earlier because uh, the conference this past year added four new teams. They added Houston, Central Florida, BYU, and Cincinnati. And the conference wasn't supposed to add any new teams until they had left the conference for the SEC. And mm, mm, uh, Texas and Oklahoma are good teams for the SEC to get, but I still don't like it because it's taking away uh, mm, competition between uh, the two conferences. Like, uh, Oklahoma is a big loss for the Big 12 conference because they had been their most dominant team recently. They had won six times in a row that conference recently, and Texas used to be uh, one of the conference's uh, best teams, but they had uh, fallen apart for a really long time. But this past year, they'd finally gotten good again. Uh, mm, and mm, mm, so it's really too bad that they're losing those two teams because they used to be the second best conference, just behind the SEC. Mm, mm. No uh, conference to me should really have more than 14 teams in it, and this will move the SEC up to 16 teams. And uh, mm, another thing that's really bad to me about it is it's changing up the scheduling in the SEC. Before there was the two divisions, the West and East, and uh, the winner of the West and East, played for the SEC championship, and uh, there were seven teams in each division. Mm, So uh, uh, every team in each division played the six other teams from their division, and then they each played uh, mm, mm, a team from the other division that was a rival to them every year. So you knew what over half of their opponents were going to be before the season even started. And now mm, the SEC is still keeping rivalries like the Egg Bowl and Iron Bowl, uh, but uh, now most of uh, these games that were played every year aren't going to be played every year uh, mm, anymore. So you won't know near as much about each team's schedule uh, before it's announced. Mm, and mm, Texas really proved that they are ready to compete in the SEC after they beat Alabama uh, this past season. I know Alabama got better uh, mm, later in the season, but still they were a good team and they beat them by 10 points. Mm, and mm, uh, mm, Oklahoma got back to being good again this past year after having a rough year before. Mm, so I think there'll be competitive teams in the SEC. Uh, mm, and mm, uh, the Big 12 conference added. Uh, well, they're gonna add this coming season. Mm, Colorado, which I talked about in the last video, a terrible program, and then Arizona, which mm, they had one good year last year. Then Arizona State, another terrible program, and then they're adding Utah. That was the best one they got because uh, Utah has become one of the better programs the Power Five. And that is though uh, gonna make that conference weaker. Mm, and then the Pac-12. Mm, mm, it's really too bad that it's coming to an end because for a long time it was the weakest conference in the Power Five, but these past 2 years it had actually gotten to be a good conference. This past season they had a team in the national championship game. Mm, mm, And the two teams that were left from that conference, Oregon State and Washington State, are not joining conferences, so they're forced to join Notre Dame as independents. Mm, mm, And mm, the ACC had actually become the weakest Power Five conference. It was really weak this past season, which is why Florida State didn't get in the college football playoff. Uh, because uh, even though they went undefeated, uh, it wasn't just that they didn't have their quarterback. They also played a really weak schedule, much weaker than Alabama did because of the conference that they were in. So the ACC was a 14 team conference until this season. Now they're moving up to 17 teams. They added SMU, who wasn't even from the Power Five. They added Stanford, a terrible team from the Pac-12, and then California, another team that's terrible from the Pac-12. So the ACC is going to be the weakest of the now four conferences. Mm, mm, And mm, uh, now, really, the SEC and the Big Ten are really just going to be the main two conferences. It's not going to be as competitive anymore. The Big Ten had 14 conferences. I mean, not conferences, teams. Before this coming season, they added Washington and Oregon from the Pac-12, and then USC and UCLA from the Pac-12. Those were good teams for them to get, but uh, it's still just too many teams to me. The Big Ten had uh, two divisions before this, and they're going to get rid of divisions now. Uh, they had the West and East divisions, and one good thing about this is uh, mm, the conference's three best teams, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, were all in the East Division, and the West Division was horrible. So, uh, whoever won the East Division was sure to win the conference because they weren't going to have to play anyone very good from the West Division. So, now it will just be the top two teams playing uh, for the conference championship in the Big Ten and the SEC. Mm, And uh, USC and UCLA are still keeping their rivalry, and so are Oregon and Washington. Mm, So that those teams will strengthen the Big Ten conference. Mm, and mm, Another big problem going on right now in college football is the transfer portal. Uh, it has just gotten way too far out of control. Like uh, mm, now, mm, uh, there are even starters that are leaving their team. Uh, mm, Sometimes now even a good team to go somewhere else. Mm, and uh, mm, they'll now if they don't get a chance to play for the championship, a lot of them will dump their team before the bowl game and not so they don't play in it. Uh, mm, and To me, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. And A lot of this is just about money now. Uh, Players just want to play uh, now for the place that can give them the most money. Mm, And to me, mm, mm, if uh, uh, players are gonna transfer somewhere else, mm, mm, uh, they should have to pay back all this money that they're getting paid uh, from the place that they're leaving, mm, and that would slow this down uh, because then they wouldn't want to go anymore. Mm, And then players that are uh, quitting on their team uh, for the NFL draft, not playing in the bowl game, to me shouldn't be allowed. Uh, mm, because I know there's this stuff about how they don't want to risk an injury before they get drafted in that game, but to me, they owe that to their team who's been with them the whole time, helping them get uh, to where they want to be in the NFL. Mm, And then uh, players that quit on their team because of the NFL draft get to stand on the sidelines and advise their team uh, like they care. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. They shouldn't be allowed to uh, mm, uh, be at the bowl games that they quit on their team. Uh, and because if they really cared, they would be playing in them. Mm, And mm, mm, the transfer portal is now ruining some players. Like, for example, uh, mm, mm, there's a Spencer Sanders who was a good quarterback at uh, Oklahoma State. Uh, Maybe the best one that they had ever had and was mm, a 4-year starter there, and then uh, he decided to leave Oklahoma State to go to mm, Ole Miss, and uh, their starting quarterback was returning, Jackson Dart. Mm, and it looked to me like if Dart didn't improve, that Sanders would probably win the starting job there. But Dart got better, and Sanders ended up sitting on the bench the whole season and only playing in garbage time. Mm, And now he won't get drafted because he was a good enough quarterback to uh, uh, play in the NFL, but he needed another year of experience to get drafted. So that ruined him. Mm, And uh, also an example of a starter leaving a good team is uh, the quarterback McCord from Ohio State that started for them this past season, who uh, mm, decided to leave them to go to a terrible program, Syracuse, uh, mm, which that made no sense to me. Uh, and what's happening with mm, mm, Alabama right now with the transfer portal? That's uh, actually a normal thing. Uh, that's been going on for a long time. Where if a coach retires or uh, goes to a different school or gets fired, a lot of the players will decommit from the school that they're going to play for, or the players that are already playing will transfer because they don't want to be there anymore. Uh, but a lot of uh, this stuff that's going on now is not good. Like now, so many of the good players are, probably most of them now, are playing for two or three different places before they go to the mm, mm, NFL. It's terrible. Mm, mm, And mm, mm, the SEC, you know, mm, used to have Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, LSU, and uh, Texas A&M in the West, and uh, mm, Georgia, Missouri, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, uh, mm, Tennessee, and Kentucky and Florida mm, in the East, and so uh, now I think mm, the they should have done it to where uh, they added another conference game because the Big 12 and uh, uh, Pac 12 and Big 10 have been playing nine conference games for a while now. So the SEC could have moved up to that and then just uh, put Texas and mm, Oklahoma each in a division and then uh, left everything else mm, the same. Mm, mm. And mm, that will be about it with uh, this video today. And please subscribe and thanks again for watching another video.